Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the power went out for about 30 minutes, I think, all in all, in the Huntfield neighborhood. So, but everything all good. The wind was a little crazy, but the wind and rain, but that was it. So.
Yeah, man, these things come, and you're just hopeful. I've got trees around my house. I'm always, every time that wind blows through, I always sign of the cross.
Oh, yeah.
to protect us.
I accidentally left my umbrella out, so that wasn't a good idea.
That's gone, I'm sure.
Yeah. I was able to retrieve it.
Mike, of course, a political commentator, has done some work in the Republican Party, was a candidate for office in the last election as well, and a member of as a House of Delegate in the primary. And we brought him in today to discuss some things going on, which includes the Epstein situation, which...
What Epstein situation?
Yeah, that's exactly what it's being referred to as. Some recent comments this morning from the president talked about his folks who keep asking about it still, and they weren't complimentary toward his base, which is some of which is very upset right now.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is a concern for the president. I mean, especially with midterms around the corner. But I'm of two minds of this situation. So first, he needs his base, right, for absolute turnout. 2026 is going to be, I think, a steeper hill than Republicans would like to admit. Now, if redistricting goes forward in Texas, they could potentially pick up 5 seats, but that's the Republicans. But
that could be negated by California because Gavin Newsom has threatened to do the same in the opposite direction.
Exactly. So I don't see anything really coming out of that. But there's two things right now. I do believe it's a problem for the president with his base, but also he only has one term. He technically doesn't need to be beholden to them, right? I think that's what we're seeing here. But on the flip side of this, I do think the Epstein situation is very, very serious. I do think that, kind of like the JFK files, right, there's something that we can't know. Now, I don't agree with that, but I think there's something kind of deeper there that must be bigger, because all of a sudden these people that wanted to conquer the deep state are now the deep state themselves, right? Now, that is how government works, but I'm also of the opinion that this is actually, I think, a good thing on the flip side for the president, because the conspiratorial kind of wing that I believe that was dragging down really his reputation, the Republican Party as a whole, now has to be like, wait, under this rock is just a rock. Maybe this kind of conspiratory mindset begins to go away.
Well, if it's going to go away, it won't be anytime soon.
No, but this is the first time that they've been bucked kind of before, which I think is an interesting political development. So who knows?
But what do you think about, first, let's start with Pam Bondi. The report's on my desk. I've got the list that's on my desk. Then there is no report. Mm-hmm. Then the report was written by Obama and Biden.
Which is ridiculous.
A wise man told me a long time ago, if you're guilty, you start to sing. There's a lot of singing going on here by a lot of different people.
I think it's weird because I do believe that Pam Bondi was the right pick, especially, consider it was either Gates or Pam Bondi, right? So I do think Pam Bondi had a decent reputation when she was Attorney General of Florida. I was pulling for her, but when it comes to the list, I don't think maybe it was a list. I think it was some sort of file, right? But I do think that was kind of a signal to that conspiratory wing that, we're going to fight for you, we're going to do this. Maybe it is true that it's not as deep as we think. At the same time, there's definitely something up that all of a sudden we can't release.
See, I think this is Capone's vault. Remember that with Geraldo Rivera? Mm. There's the big build-up. We're going to open up Capone's vault. And they did, and there's nothing there.
Inside there.
And I think that's really what this Epstein file is. Pam Bondi, the most ham-handed handling of anything ever in my lifetime. I have this pile of papers, 10,000 documents, whatever, thousands of documents, and I do believe it turned out to be a nothing burger, much like the release of the JFK files. Millions of documents, tens of thousands of documents, and there's really nothing new there.
But those still haven't all been released.
The Washington Post did recently. They're starting to, I guess, dig further, and we are seeing connections with the CIA, things like that. But those are kind of things that we've already.
Yes, nothing new, nothing that hasn't.
I guess not yet.
I mean, there's no smoking gun. There's no guy on the grassy knoll. There's nothing. There's nothing that really contradicts the basics of the Warren report. Same with the RFK stuff. Sometimes things just happen. Now, here's what concerns me about the Epstein files. Everyone, if in fact there was some damning information about Donald Trump, we would have seen it certainly within the last 4 years. Yeah. If there was damning information about prominent Democrats, we definitely would have seen it within the last 6 months. I think what we see, what I'm going to guess, is that there's a Rolodex, and this guy Epstein is so filthy. I don't know if you ever, if you watch South Park, but Mr. Hanky, right?
Yeah.
Whatever he touches, gets a little dirty.
For a while, South Park was the best written show on TV.
Absolutely, and I, if in fact there is a Rolodex that just has a bunch of names in it, I think it would be entirely unfair to release the Rolodex and put a lot of innocent people who happen to be in his address book on the back foot to have to defend why does this third party have
and that's
me
actually
in his
what Bill
address
O'Reilly
books.
said.
I think that's really unfair.
Yeah, because Bill O'Reilly said he talked to Trump, and Trump kind of gave his rationale to him, and he said like there's people, because we forget Epstein was like a Democratic donor. Like when people why was Trump hanging out with him? Like it was normal to hang out with Jeffrey Epstein.
And Trump was a Democrat for part of his life.
He was a Democrat. Bill Clinton, Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, like Hollywood, right? The Hollywood and politics were mixing with him. That does not mean that they also went to the island. At the same time, we have to remember, what was it, a few months ago? Remember that the Virginia lady, Virginia something.
Yeah,
she was the one with Prince Andrew.
Gray, I think it was.
Yes, and she said, I got hit by a truck and I'm not going to live. Apparently there was no accident. Apparently she made that all up and then committed suicide like a week later. Apparently she fabricated some things, but I think that also adds a layer of complexity to where is there a there, which I think there is, but it might not be as nefarious as what you said.
And I what makes us think, I mean, everybody in this room has not that level, but some level of celebrity, some level of public life. Mm-hmm. If we get whacked by whatever measure, nobody has a right to what's in my computer or who's in my list of contacts. Nobody has a right to see that stuff. So why is that different than somebody like Jeffrey Epstein, who, if there's criminal activity, then yes. If it's not criminal activity, then nobody has a right to see his private stuff.
Yeah. Well, here's the difference. Once you commit a crime, and pedophilia is a pretty big one, that kind of changes things. It's a game changer. This is the reason why the base is so upset right now in the Republican Party, and that's because of that word right there, pedophilia. Right? This isn't a guy who was running a very expensive escort service with 30-year-old hookers in Las Vegas. That's not what was going on here. We're talking about teenagers who were coerced into going to his island and putting out, for lack of a better way of putting it. And there were a lot of people along the way who assisted that process, and there were a lot of people who took advantage of this client list or took advantage of the services on the island. Now, you can say, well, just because they knew him, the name's on a list, the name shouldn't be made public. What the public right now is upset about, from what I gather, and following a lot of these younger folks, probably even younger than you, Mike, who are doing a lot of the social media streams about this, and I've been skipping through a few of these the last few days just to see where their mind is, and their mind isn't about, did Donald Trump have sex with an underage girl? Okay, did Bill Clinton have sex with an underage girl? Right? That's not what the question is. The question is, you said you wanted to make this list public. Mm-hmm. This was a big thing. This was a big deal you made. We didn't ask you about this. This was your deal. It's one of the things you talked about. Okay?
Why is Maxwell in jail?
Yeah, and then the list is on my desk. I'm looking through it right now, and then all of a sudden, well, there is no list. But that's not what you said. You said the list was on your desk. You were going through it, about to make it public. So what people are upset about is, here we go again.
Yeah.
Right? The Who song, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Right? This is what's got people upset about this. Make it public. Right? If there's some names you want to redact because all they did was they had Epstein's name in their phone and that's pretty much the end of the relationship, that's fine. But there's more than that. There's flight logs. Yep. There's who visited the island. There's photographs in his plane with famous people. That plane wasn't going to California, right? Yeah. It was going to the island, right? So if this is not a big deal, then make it public.
Well, and at the very least, what they do owe, because they've gotten so far over their skis on these things, what they do owe is a full-throated explanation of why it's nobody's business or why we were wrong, why we assumed while we were out of power and just guessing what's on the list, we said it was a big list, but now we find out it wasn't. They do owe a full-throated explanation.
Instead, Trump is calling the people who are asking for transparency stupid and babies. Weaklings.
At any level of government, to the degree to which you decide a piece of information should be hidden from the public, whatever the validity of that decision, you invite speculation. And when you invite speculation, you risk conspiracy theories. So start off with saying, listen, unless we have to keep this information secret, the public should know it. And it is amazing how many people in government will say, oh, we don't need to tell the public this. Mm-hmm. I mean, in most cases, it's kind of innocent. And I'll say to them, this is information that isn't going to hurt anything you're trying to do. Let the public know. So anyway, I believe that is a lot of what is going on here. And yes, Rob, you're right. This is a particularly serious crime. And it's my understanding that Maxwell has now volunteered to testify. And so maybe that is a way that we find out what's going on. And also, Mike, I will confess to you, if you're going to choose between Pam Bondi and Matt Gaetz, surely Bondi is the choice. Yeah. But I will say this about Pam Bondi. And I noticed this before, she has a tendency to speak imprecisely, which is not good for a lawyer. And that, I think, is what happened when somebody said, hey, are you going to open up the file? It's on my desk. That "it's," of course, referred to the file in the minds of the questioner and everybody who heard it. And now she's saying, oh, I meant the file. If she had simply said, I have the file on my desk and I'm going to look into it and see what's there, she would have been off the hook.
Actually, it's ironic, I think. Just maybe I changed my mind because I think maybe Attorney General Matt Gaetz would have released the file. Potentially, right?
Actually, I think you're right. I think he probably would have.
Well, potentially. Gaetz already had his own experience with underage girls.
you know what this reminds me of, Rob? Like, this actually reminds me of the Pam Bondi defense. Because I do think, instead of Trump doubling down, which he does like to do, someone should have paid a price. But it reminds me of just like adding Jonah Goldberg to the chat and nothing happened. Someone needs to pay a price. So a scalp should have been collected for that. Scalp should be collected for this, in order to at least write something with the base. Because right now, I'll tell you, and I don't agree with Tucker Carlson as of late, but I do not think it's helpful if Tucker Carlson and the president are on different sides here. I think Tucker's a little more dogged and Tucker could peel away his base if he wanted to.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think it was Jonah Goldberg. I think it was that other Goldberg. Maybe. The one from the Atlantic, right?
Isn't that Jonah Goldberg?
No, Jonah Goldberg's is a center right commentator that
I think he's the editor now.
No, that's a different Goldberg.
Maybe it is. Yeah. I don't know.
But here's the thing: if you peel away if you anger Trump's base, and where are they going to go? They're going to get angry, and then come ballot box, they're going to vote for whoever the Democrats float out there.
Well, sometimes they just don't vote.
Well, I guess they don't
show up.
They don't vote, but a lot of them were Bernie bros, too.
Well, there's that.
I mean, there is that weird, Trump and Bernie really tapped into something.
That's true. A lot of them voted for AOC. So AOC got a lot of.
It's very possible.
The angry blue collar.
Yeah, it's very possible that goes all the way to the other that pendulum, because we're already seeing this as a test subject. I don't know if you guys listened to the Flagrant 2 podcast with Andrew Schultz, but he was a test subject where he started out as a Bernie bro, comedian. Then 2024, he flipped to Trump, and now he's angry at the Epstein thing. So now all of a sudden he's saying that the Democratic Socialists are really the only party that's looking out for Americans and actually putting Americans first.
But I'll tell you what,
it's happening.
Hence New York.
If I'm running Trump's office, I think there's this knee-jerk reaction. I am not letting the other side dictate my agenda. Right? Trump has been very good in these first 6 months. He has run the agenda. He has run the news cycle. Now I think he's resistant to being pushed off of that by this Epstein thing, which is why he's having this angry pushback. I'm not reacting to this and being sucked down into this hole. Now, the easiest way to do it is to put out an explanation or to fire Bondi or to release something or whatever, but that's surrender, right? And I think he's...
Well, but he surrendered with the signal.
The solution here is easy.
Right, remember, he surrendered to department head with the signal scandal.
But he also can't lose his base. Like already, we can't lose. He can't lose the base. He can't lose anybody. Republicans can't lose anybody that was gained in 2024. But already, losing the base, voters of color, like all of a sudden, the Latino coalition in recent polling is being reduced. Like this is not good for the midterms.
At first we were only going to deport the violent criminals, and now it's
anybody's
everybody.
up for grabs.
Yeah, everybody.
The observation about the people who vote for Trump and for Bernie, it reminds me of the voters in Italy during the 50s, that every time there was an election, they would always vote for the communists. Not because they agreed with them, it was just their way of giving the finger to whoever was incumbent.
I had 2 years of, you had to take a language, and I was at Duquesne University for the major I was in, so I took 2 years of Italian. My instructor was Eugenia Squarecchi, who was actually from Italy, and she said on the first day of class, Italians are terrible at governing. They change governments like they change their underwear. And if that's about pretty regular for most people, I would hope. Yeah, but it's very true.
That was true in the 50s. They've gotten a little bit better lately, but they're still not good at it.
About a minute left. Mike, if you had to have a prediction on this in terms of legs and how long this lasts or doesn't last, what would you say?
The only way of snuffing this out if some international, there's a Middle East shakeup right now with Syria, that could kind of get Trump out of the news cycle if he puts some decisive action there.
Bomb somebody to get out of it?
Like Clinton, right? I don't know. But I think this lives online for at least 6 months.
6 months?
Potentially.
Do you think it affects the midterms?
I do.
Yeah. I think the difference here
not
is...
voting for Democrats, but just sitting out. Like, I do think some people will sit out. Trump
really turned a lot of voters. Mm-hmm. In pretty much every demographic group.
Historic.
But especially young voters, the Joe Rogan crowd.
Yep.
And those much younger than Rogan. And those seem to be the ones who are the most upset about this. I'm 62. I'm not that upset about this because this is just example number 100 of this kind of stuff being covered up.
But already Sean Ryan's interviewing Gavin Newsom. Like this the right cannot lose the podcast circuit.
No, they can't.
But podcasters exist to churn, right? To keep these things alive. So, but that doesn't mean that it's a real issue.
That doesn't mean it's not, though.
Yeah. So what
especially
we need,
among men. And men
we need to bomb an aspirin factory.
Mike, good to talk with you again, man. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.